So welcome back to another video. And today it's about something I call inter-channel communication. And it's about sending a signal from one channel to the other channel to change some parameters or, some modulations. Maybe you want to create some kind of global sequencer track that has a lot of modulations on it, and you want to send these modulations to different sub-channels, and you want to have just one global channel where you can change everything, and then the whole track and every sub-track changes with it. So I want to give you some ideas how you can achieve this, and what kind of possibilities you have. So we switch here to Bitwig. Of course, it's in Bitwig, a tutorial in Bitwig, of course. And let's say this is our, let's zoom in here. This is our global track here at the top. And maybe you want to introduce here some modulations that you want to then send to other channels here. Maybe you have a polysynth here on channel 3, and you want to modulate this, this cut off here. And one way of doing this is, you probably already know this, using a DC offset device. And this DC offset device creates some audio waveforms. Let's use an oscilloscope here. Some audio waveforms. And you send this audio then to different sub-channels. Maybe you go to the polysynth here and use an audio rate. And the audio rate has an side channel or sidechain input here, where you can go to the DC offset channel, this first track here, and you get the, you just grab the audio from there. And when you, let's create here a random modulation, something like this. So we have some modulation here. We sent this as an audio signal out to this track, and I muted this track so it doesn't disturb the speakers now. And in here we just grab this. As you can see, oh, it's we need to DC offset pre here. You can see we get now here the modulation in here, and then we can use this to change it or the cutoff. So this is one way of doing this. And the problem with this is you can only use one DC offset device. Maybe you use multiple DC offset devices in here in parallel, or in one after another, and then you just grab it here to multiple devices. That's one way of doing it. But I want to give you also another way of doing this. So let's remove this here, also the DC offset device, and let's go for a Midi CC device. And Midi CC sends out not nodes, but only CC informations. And you can use the node receiver also to grab these kind of signals. So maybe we go here to CC10, maybe we call this cutoff. We attach here a random modulator, modulate this. Maybe not too fast. So something like this. And now we can go into here and we can say, let's use an node receiver, this one, and grab the signal from our Midi CC channel here. And we disable the input. And then we can use here also a Midi modulator, CC, and go to 10, and then we get here the modulations from the first channel. Dial this back. So, and the advantage that you have with this is then that you can clone this here and go maybe for CC11 and modulate something different, and do the same here with the CC11, and when we call it resonance, duplicate this, modulate your different signal, and then you have a second, a second modulation signal you can use on your track. And you can crank this up until this rack is full, but you can also go here and duplicate this and maybe go for 20, and let's go 21 here. And then we have here to modify this. I think we have to go here to this. And then we go here to 20, 21. Yeah, 21, 20. And you can see we also get these signals here, or receiving these signals in the Midi modulator. And yeah, you can make as many as you want, I think, up until 127 cc's. That's what is available. And I haven't tried it out, but you can also maybe change the MIDI channels. Maybe try this. No, it's still receiving here. It doesn't care for the MIDI channel at all. Maybe you can try it out and crank it up and try it out if it's also receiving channels way over or past 127. But I think this is here limited, right? To it's limited to 127. So you're kind of stuck with this. But you can send out 127 signals from one global channel and send it out to different multiple sub channels, right? You can then filter here out and say this is maybe 21, and here I want to have 20. So you kind of can use this to make a global modulation track, and paint in here some modulations instead of using this here. So maybe let's create here a track. Open up this one. We can move this here. This is CC10. Maybe use CC20 here. So we can paint this in. And now we have basically the same. It's this one here, CC20. We have now this modulation in here on this track, in this modulator available. So we can use this here for the cutoff. Yeah, maybe let's paint in here some kind of melody line, so I can show you the next trick. Because that's not all. Let's go ahead to CC20. So now that we have this, you can say, oh, I want to have this here in here. And we can just remove this here, or just delete the modulation tally. You can see we have now here the modulation part of the clip. And you can call this or bring this up here by using here the automation editor panel. And this is now part of the track, and you can also change here the Midi CCs and move between different CCs and change the modulation for each CC differently. But what you can do now with this is that we have now the possibility to play this over and over here independently from this track. We can also say we want to shorten the length here. Something like this. So you can make like polyrhythmical modulations by just changing here the length. And you can also retrigger this here when you, I think when you say here, launch quantization default, which is, I think, every beat, you can put this to off. So you can re-trigger this independently from this one here. So it's kind of a multi-stage envelope generator where you can retrigger this at will and change here the basically the settings of this. And you can also use up to 127 of these curves and modulate things on different tracks. It's also possible to make some kind of arc things where you maybe do some kind of soundtrack and you know exactly how long your soundtrack needs to be because you have a video. And then you say, for instance, oh, this is the intro here. I get less dynamics here. It's at the fullest of our track, and here it slowly goes down. And then you can mark certain points in your video where you want to have, or how you want to lay out the structure of your soundtrack to the video. And then you just grab this to one of your tracks and then decide, maybe at this point here I want the synth more loud, or I want the cutoff more open, or I want to introduce a different type of modulation at this point here. So you kind of you can lay out basically your overall structure of your soundtrack and then get these informations into different sub-channels and then act accordingly with the synth to it. So this only covers basically the CC and modulations, but sometimes you have a different problem. So let's say we have here an polysynth. We can just leave here the melody on this. Okay, maybe let's remove this here so it's more simple setup. And then you have here at a certain point in your chain, you have a filter and you maybe have an ADSR. And this ADSR is triggered by the nodes, right? By the nodes of this channel. And maybe sometimes you don't have nodes on the channel, or you want to trigger this with a different channel. Maybe I use here an audio file. Yeah, let's just use this. It doesn't matter. It's not so important what I use here. So let's bring this over here to the file. So let's say we have here a pad sound. And there are no nodes on this channel, right? So it's no way that ADSR get triggered by something. And what we can do now is we can introduce nodes to this audio channel. So we can mix we can mix audio and MIDI at the same time, or nodes in case of Bitwig Studio. It's called nodes, actually, node channels or node informations. So we can bring in here the node receiver, and it doesn't give us here the option because it's an audio channel. So we have to select your different filter. Node receiver, there it is. And then you can see it still passes through the audio from our audio channel, so it doesn't interference with the audio at all. And we can bring in nodes from the polysynth here. So let's go for this. Maybe mute this. So now you can see we get now here signals from this track here above. So we basically have an audio channel. On this audio channel there's an audio waveform, and we get MIDI information from a different channel without the sidechain. It's all basically done with the node receiver. And now we can use this here to trigger this. So basically the node receiver plays the role of the sidechain input for, maybe you have here the outside chain, something like this here, right? Where you can select something from a different channel, but we don't have this here with the ADSR. So we need to implement this here with the node receiver, basically. So this is something you can do. You can mix audio and node informations at the same time. It's no problem at all. And you can do this anywhere in your yeah, in your chain. It doesn't matter how deep or how many devices you have, you can bring this all the time. You can also do something like where you mix different things here, I think. So we have now two MIDI channels or instrument channels. Maybe we use a different notes. Just offset this a bit. So maybe we use here a chain. Put this in here. Put this in here. So we can see here is option it's called mute. So this basically means that we can mute everything, every MIDI information coming from the front of the note receiver, right? So when we duplicate this here to a second thing, no source, you can see we receive MIDI information on here, but on here we don't get anything. If I mute this, we get informations. So when we activate this note receiver here and have mutes input on, then everything that comes in from front of the chain device gets muted. So we can select here the second polysynth. Maybe I make this a bit shorter here. So we have here the fast ones and here we have the slow ones. If you want to mix basically these two together, so you want to have the slow ones and here you want to have the slow ones and the fast ones, you can just disable input here, this button, so we can mix basically these two together. So this is something you can do. Another thing someone asked me was I think, yeah, how you can create basically notes on an audio channel. So we have audio here, so there's no way of creating notes on here. I mean, you can insert here some notes, some note clips, but sometimes you want to have, for instance, a filter, something like this. And we use here again ADSR, which is triggered by MIDI notes. And without getting informations from anywhere else, we can generate here something with a replacer. As you can see, most of these things are filtered out. Replacer, we bring the mix to 0, we use a sine, or maybe you can DC offset device, it's also possible. Use a chain device, so we can put everything in here. Bring the mix down. So this gets now here the sound from our channel, but we don't want that, so we use a tool and mute this. Also, but we don't need. So as you can see, no informations are coming into the replacer here from our audio channel. But we can now generate our own signals with this DC offset device, as you can see here. And every time we surpass or exceed here our threshold, which we can change here with the threshold, of course, we trigger or we generate a note, which is here C3 with velocity at 100%. So you can introduce here a random modulator. Maybe make it a bit faster. And when we change the threshold, pull this up, it kind of creates some kind of chance module, chance of triggering. Doesn't matter. So we can generate now notes here. And yeah, we need to leak out basically now here the notes, I think. Yeah. Oh, there it is. I need to put the threshold down. So now we can close this. So we generate with this one here some nodes. We can call this maybe MIDI nodes. And then trigger here some ADSR envelopes with this. And there's no other way you can trigger ADSRs without having a node. So you need nodes. There's no way of modulating this here with a different modulator to generate some envelopes. So you need to use some kind of device here like I did here. If you want to generate nodes from this audio signal, you don't need to use DC offset device here or this. You can just, you know, just use the pad sound here and change the threshold. And you can just use the replacer here to generate nodes from this audio signal. So this is also possible. So without having a MIDI channel or a note channel or instrument channel, you can generate nodes on an audio track easily. So back to our original example where we use maybe an instrument track here. And on this instrument track, we can also use a polygrid. And inside the polygrid, we have a lot of options, of course, with logic informations and also maybe let's use a trigger module here, or use 2 trigger modules. Let's use this here as a clock, 16 triggers. Use a clock quantize, use this as a clock information, maybe bring in here some uneven triggers. And we get here some informations out we can use on just on a modulator out. And then we can do the same, basically. We can say we want to, instead of using here my grid node out, we can also use the Midi CC device. And maybe modulate here CC10. Something like this. And then we can go to the pad track here and say we want to filter this here. Oh, let's use an audio filter. Use the Midi CC device or Midi CC modulator here, CC10. And we need a receiver, not receiver. We get information from the polygrid. Let's see. And we have this information now in here. And yeah, can use this here to modulate this one. And we can change here how we trigger this. Maybe use here an AD. And if you want to, you can also just duplicate this here, use different timing and modulate your CC2 or CC12 or 11. Let's go for this. And go on the second track here. And you get some nice rhythmic feel, right? And you can, create this here on a global track. Maybe use this globals and grab this from this channel to every subtrack you want, and use this maybe for modulations or from whatever. But you can define basically all your global modulations in here, up to 127 modulations. And then grab this to all bring this to all kinds of subtracks, which can be kind of interesting to have this all in one place. Because now you can go in here and maybe you make a performance for an audience, and you can change everything in here rhythmically, and every subtrack changes with it. Could be interesting. So it's just an idea how you can approach something like this in the Bitwig scenario. So another idea is to chain basically some envelopes, use an AD here, and use a gate module, and we use this gate module here to trigger only at the start of the bar, trigger the first envelope. As you can see, it works pretty nice. And then we use a comparison module, this one here, and use a second one. So every time this envelope gets to 0, or comes back to 0, the input is 0, and here our second input is empty, which is also 0. So 0 is 0, and then this one gets triggered. So every time we go back here to 0, this one gets triggered, and so on. So we can just duplicate this here multiple times. That's impossible. And we can change basically here some envelopes together. So it's kind of a multi-stage envelope generator, right? And yeah, we can use this here now to modulate basically our CC10 thing here. So we're combining multiple envelopes here together. Let's see how this works out. So you can see here it's a strange waveform. Maybe you can change this a bit. And you can make this change as long as you want. There's no, it's up to you. Another thing is maybe you can do the same as before with the clock quantizer and mix these signals just together. Let's trigger here. Go to 16. Trigger this one. Something like this. Then you modulate this. Yeah. Then you modulate this again. Then you modulate this again. Then change here the settings. You go to 6, 9. And then you get a weird combination of these. Sometimes you overlap with the modulations, sometimes not. So you get some wild combinations, which in the end gets you some interesting waveforms maybe. And they are kind of rhythmically correct if you have the attack here at 0, probably. And if you change here the timings, so it gets you nice rhythms just by modulating this. And yeah, as you just saw, you can use then here the note receiver and can pull this to every track, and you have kind of a nice new rhythm modulator that is the same on every track you want to use. Okay, so the last tip for today is about combining MIDI channels to one MIDI channel. So let's say we have here a note track with some random notes on it. doesn't matter what kind of notes. And the second MIDI clip here. So something like this. And then you want to combine these two MIDI clips to just one MIDI clip, or maybe you have 3 or 4 of these clips and you want to combine them. So in this case here, this example, I just used 2, but you can use more. Or let's use 3, for instance, right? So just for the example here, just move this in between here. Something like this, I don't know. So now we want to combine all these 3 things here. So we use a 4th channel. And on this channel, we use a note receiver, of course. So we bring in here track number 1, duplicate this, bring in track number 2, duplicate this, bring in track number 3, mute these 2 inputs so we can receive also here everything from the first inputs. And now we can use here a 5th thing and bring in here basically everything from the note receiver. Hit record and just record everything, you know, to one channel. And as you can see, we have basically now a combined MIDI clip from these 3 tracks. So this is something you can do. Maybe sometimes this is helpful, or you want to do this when you import some MIDI tracks or MIDI files from somewhere else and everything is split up into multiple tracks, so you can combine this easily with this kind of track. So just use here a note receiver track, pull in all the MIDI notes from all the tracks together, and then record everything onto a 5th track, and you are good. So this is the last trick, I think, for today. So yeah, that's it. Thanks for watching. I hope it was pretty helpful. Leave a thumbs up if you found this helpful, and subscribe to the channel if you're not subscribed, and maybe think about the Patreon subscription, because that keeps me alive. And also thanks to all my current Patreons for supporting me. Thumbs up. Thanks to everyone, and I see you in the next video. Bye.